My family laughed when I said I was running a business. At the annual BBQ, they called it a cute hobby and asked when I'd get a real job. The next morning, my sister showed up to interview. The smell of mosquito smoke and sizzling ribs drifted through the evening air as the Walker family's annual summer BBQ got underway in suburban Denver. Laughter echoed off the back patio walls. Children darted between lawn chairs and uncles nursed beers while debating fantasy football drafts. I leaned against the side fence, 33 now, but still treated like the confused art major who never figured life out. My younger sister, Sophie, lit up the center of the gathering in her pale blue jumpsuit, animatedly describing her latest success to a circle of doting relatives. Sophie just finished her dual masters at Wharton and MIT, my mom announced, loud enough for everyone, including me, to hear. She's had back-to-back interviews with Fortune 500 companies. That girl is going places. She smiled like she had coached every step of Sophie's life. I sipped from my lemonade and waited for the inevitable follow-up. Meanwhile, she added, her tone shifting, some of us still can't decide what we want to do. Isn't that right, Lauren? I forced a tight smile, my grip on the glass tightening as Mom's words cut deeper than I'd let show. Still figuring it out, Mom, I said lightly, though my chest burned with the weight of her dismissal. I raised an eyebrow but said nothing. Across the patio, my father chuckled as he flipped a steak on the grill. Still tinkering with your little business thing? He asked. What was it again? Digital workflow something? He laughed, not unkindly but dismissively as always. You know, Lauren, maybe it's time to get a real job, he added, shaking his head, as if my life were a puzzle he'd given up solving. I ran my thumb along the condensation of my glass, thinking about the 10:00 a.m. boardroom meeting tomorrow. The one where we would close on the acquisition of Brighton & Co. and announce our newly expanded executive team. The one where I, founder and CEO of Peak Pulse Solutions, would sign off on the final approvals. Something like that, I murmured, letting it slide. Just then, Sophie clapped her hands to get everyone's attention. They reached out directly. It's one of the hottest tech consultancies in the country. Cheers and congratulations erupted instantly. My Aunt Vivian rushed forward with a glass of rosé. That's amazing, Sophie. I read an article about their founder. Brilliant woman. Totally self-made. My dad nodded in approval. Their hiring bar is insanely high. They don't just take anyone. I held back a laugh, remembering the neatly prepared short list from HR sitting in my inbox, including Sophie's resume. She had no idea the company she'd been gushing about for weeks was mine, that I had built Peak Pulse Solutions from my studio apartment in Boulder a decade ago, that while she climbed ladders others set for her, I had forged my own. What position are you interviewing for? I asked, keeping my tone light. Her eyes sparkled. Senior strategy consultant. Can you imagine? That's practically executive level. She leaned in, her voice dripping with condescension. Don't worry, Lauren, it's a big deal. You wouldn't get it. Oh, I replied, smiling into my glass. I look forward to seeing how that goes. She laughed, then added with syrupy, maybe once I'm hired, I can put in a good word for you, Lauren. I'm sure Peak Pulse Solutions has a few entry-level admin roles. My mother gave an approving nod. That's very kind of you, darling. Lord knows your sister could use the help. 33 and still... She trailed off, gesturing vaguely in my direction. It's just so sad, Mom sighed, loud enough for the entire patio to hear. You'd think by now you'd have something to show for yourself, Lauren, whatever this is. I thought about my penthouse corner office in downtown Denver, nestled on the 30th floor of the Peak Pulse Solutions headquarters, with floor-to-ceiling windows and a private conference lounge. About the Forbes profile last month that named me one of the most influential women in tech. Though it had credited me by my professional alias, Erin, and featured a silhouette photo that protected my anonymity, I'd spent the last 10 years building Peak Pulse Solutions in the shadows. By choice, I knew one day this moment would come. That's thoughtful of you, I said, voice calm, almost amused. Good luck tomorrow. Sophie smirked, brushing a non-existent speck off her manicured sleeve. Some of us make our own luck, Lauren. You should try it sometime. Maybe start with something small, she added, her tone sharp. Like, I don't know, answering phones somewhere? I bit back a retort, letting her words hang in the air like a challenge. The conversation moved on to my cousin's new condo, my uncle's pickleball championship, and more of Sophie's academic glories. I let their words drift past me like static. Tomorrow would change everything. And I wanted to remember every detail of this last evening, this final time they all still saw me as the afterthought. As dusk set in, casting golden shadows across the stone patio, Sophie stood up, clinking her glass for attention. "I've got to head out early," she said. "I want to be sharp for tomorrow." Peak Pulse Solutions CEO is sitting in on final interviews, she added proudly. Aaron Walker or something. Nobody even knows who they really are. "They're going to love me," she said, tossing her hair with a confidence that bordered on arrogance. I mean, who wouldn't? I'm the whole package. "Well, they'll adore me," she declared, brushing her hair back confidently. "By this time tomorrow, I'll be part of their executive strategy team. Maybe then you'll finally have something to brag about," she said to Mom with a wink. "Oh, honey," Mom cooed, dabbing her eyes dramatically. "We're already so proud. At least one of our daughters stayed on track." I caught Mom's glance, her eyes pitying yet smug. "Lauren, you could learn from your sister," she said, her voice low but pointed. "She's always known how to seize an opportunity." I glanced at my watch. 13 hours and 58 minutes until Sophie would walk into the conference room and see me at the head of the table. 13 hours until everything they believed about me collapsed. I gathered my things, murmuring something about an early client call. "Oh yes, your little remote gig," Mom waved off. "Just don't forget to Venmo your share of your father's birthday gift." Sophie already covered $500, 0 cents of it again. "As usual," Mom added, her tone heavy with disappointment. "You're always leaning on her, Lauren." I nodded without replying. They didn't need to know that my remote gig had grossed 9 figures last quarter. Let them cling to their assumptions. I slipped behind the wheel of the unremarkable gray SUV I reserve for family events, leaving my white Tesla Model S parked safely in the underground garage downtown. As I pulled away, I heard Sophie call after me. "Don't stay up too late dreaming, Lauren. Some of us have real careers to chase." Her laughter followed me down the street, sharp and mocking. As I reversed out of the driveway, Sophie's voice rang out one last time across the lawn, loud and certain. "There are more laws, everything changes." She was right, just not the way she thought. If you want to see Sophie's face when she realizes who's sitting across the interview table, make sure you hit subscribe, 'cause, trust me, you won't want to miss what happens next. What a waste. Can't even land a real job. I smiled faintly, recalling the brushed metal nameplate that sat front and center on my desk. Aaron Walker, Chief Executive Officer, Peak Pulse Solutions. Tomorrow, Sophie would find out exactly what a real job looked like and why she'd never have one at my company. By 7, the tailored slate gray Tom Ford suit felt less like fashion and more like armor. I stood at the window, staring out at the city I'd conquered in silence, my heart racing with a mix of anticipation and resolve. Today wasn't just about Sophie. It was about proving to myself that I'd outgrown their doubts. As I reviewed the agenda, my executive assistant, Nia, knocked gently and stepped in. "Your sister's interview is set for 9 a.m. sharp," she said, handing me a slim folder. "She's already in the lobby, arrived 20 minutes early. Punctual? That's new." I arched an eyebrow. "She's also posted about it. Future executive at Peak Pulse Solutions," her words. Marketing picked it up. "She's even told front desk she plans to modernize the look up here once she's hired." "She's already talking about rebranding our logo," Nia added, rolling her eyes. "Says it's dated and she'll fix it once she's in." I stifled a chuckle. Has she now? I opened the folder. On paper, Sophie looked flawless. Dual degrees, glowing recs, polished experience. But I knew better. The internship set up through Dad's connections, the praise courtesy of our uncle's law firm. A manufactured resume wrapped in designer polish. "The board's wondering why you're personally handling this one," Nia added with a smirk. "Quality control," I said simply, rising from my chair. "And maybe a little personal closure," I admitted, my voice low. Nia nodded, understanding the weight of the moment. "How many interviews before mine?" 3, she replied, all briefed. "They'll ask the right questions. By 9, Oh, clock IMA. I stood behind the one-way glass on the upper floor, watching Sophie strut into the conference suite. Chanel suits, Prada heels, but the next 2 hours I watched her mask slip, every scripted answer unraveled, every shallow credential probed, every assumed accomplishment challenged. One interviewer asked her to explain a gap in her resume, and her flustered response, "Oh, that was just a networking sabbatical," drew a raised eyebrow. I could see her confidence cracking, her polished facade fraying with each tough question. By the time she reached the final interview, mine, her eyes were tired, her voice uncertain, her smile noticeably forced. "Send her in," I told Nia. She stepped inside my office, trying to hide her awe as she took in the floor-to-ceiling windows, curated art pieces, and the understated dominance of the room. My back was to her, chair turned toward the panoramic view. "Please have a seat, Miss Walker," I said, voice calm and clipped. She said, folding her hands in her lap, "Thank you for meeting with me, Miss Walker. I understand how valuable your time is." I turned slowly in my chair, letting the moment stretch. "Actually," I said, locking eyes with her, "it's Ms. Walker, Lauren Aaron Walker." The blood drained from her face as realization set in. The name on the walls, the initials on the press releases, the woman she'd dismissed for years. "Lauren." "Hello, Sophie," I offered a calm smile. "Surprised to see your directionless sister running the company you've been dying to work for." Her hands trembled slightly, clutching her portfolio. This can't be right," she whispered, her voice barely audible. You can't be her." She blinked rapidly, her perfectly composed persona unraveling as her lips parted soundlessly. Whatever polished answers she'd rehearsed were gone. "But this doesn't make sense," she stammered. "You're just a freelance marketer, that's what Mom said." "Did she?" I leaned forward, my gaze steady. "And what did you say, Sophie? That I should answer phones, that I'm a waste—" "Am I?" I gestured toward the wall behind me, lined with plaques, innovation awards, and framed magazine covers celebrating Peak Pulse Solutions as one of the fastest-growing tech firms in the West. "I'd built this company from scratch while you and Mom were laughing about my little business thing. Every time you flaunted your MBA, I was negotiating international contracts. Every time Dad called me a phase, I was landing Fortune 100 clients." "You tricked us!" Her voice cracked, rising with disbelief. "You lied." "No, Sophie," I replied, my tone even. "You all tricked yourselves. You were so busy assuming I was a failure that you never once stopped to ask what I was actually building." I picked up my phone and opened my banking app, turning it so she could see that birthday money Mom mentioned. "I just sent my share. It's a 7-figure transfer. To me, it's a rounding error." Tears welled in her eyes, not sorrowful, but angry and humiliated. "So, what now? You're going to expose me? Tell the whole family? You think this is about revenge?" I asked, my voice low and sharp. "This is about truth, Sophie. You walked in here thinking you'd charm your way to the top, but you didn't even prepare for the real work." I shook my head. "I don't need to say anything. Your interview performance today says it all. 3 senior partners, independent of one another, recommended against hiring you. Too arrogant, too surface level, unprepared, entitled. You set me up. I gave you exactly what you asked for. An interview with the CEO. It's not my fault you didn't come ready." I stood, smoothing the front of my suit. "I suggest you look for opportunities elsewhere, Sophie, and maybe develop some real experience, something beyond LinkedIn posts and Dad's golf connections." She rose unsteadily, her designer heels now awkward and her designer outfit suddenly looking more like a costume than power. "Do Mom and Dad know?" "They will," I said, stepping toward the door. "I'm sure you'll tell them all about your interview with Aaron." "You're cruel," she spat, her voice shaking with fury. "You could have told us. You let us believe—" "I let you believe what you wanted," I cut in, my voice firm. "You never asked, Sophie. Not once." I pressed the intercom. "Nia, please escort Miss Walker out and cancel my dinner plans with the family." "Yes, ma'am," Nia responded. "I've got a board meeting that needs my full attention." As the door closed behind her, I heard the sharp crack of her voice break in the hallway, followed by muffled sobs, not the victorious exit she had envisioned. Within an hour, my phone buzzed with family messages. Mom was first. What kind of cruel joke is this? Sophie is devastated. You've broken her heart, Lauren, her text read. How could you do this to your own sister? Then, Dad, how dare you humiliate your sister like this? We raised you better. You owe us an explanation, his message demanded. This isn't the daughter we know. I looked at the screen, let out a breath, and turned it face down. They finally knew who I really was. They just didn't realize I had stopped needing their approval a long time ago. I replied to the family group chat with just one message. You raised me to be successful. Congratulations. You did. Now, maybe you'll recognize what real achievement looks like. Then I powered off my phone and turned my attention back to what actually mattered. Leading a billion-dollar tech firm that had disrupted an entire industry while they were too busy mocking me. Let them adjust to this new reality in their own time. I wasn't going to pause Rupert for their discomfort. In the weeks that followed, the shift in family dynamics was unmistakable. The tone of our calls when they happened was strained. Gone were the dismissive digs and passive-aggressive jokes about my little business. Instead, there were awkward silences, forced silences during Zoom birthdays, and a general unease that hovered like fog. Sophie accepted a mid-tier project coordinator role at a boutique agency across town. It wasn't the career-defining leap she'd imagined. No fancy title, no corporate corner office, just a standard job earned the traditional way. She called me once, her voice bitter. You could have warned me, Lauren, she said. You let me walk into that blind... I stayed calm. You assumed you already knew everything, Sophie. I gave you a fair shot. She hung up, and we haven't spoken since. Mom and Dad stopped hosting their regular Sunday BBQs. Maybe it was shame. Maybe they didn't know how to navigate a world where the daughter they'd underestimated now ran the empire they once ridiculed. But the moment that cemented everything came 4 months later, on October 15, 2024. Forbes released a feature titled The Silent Success: How One Woman Built a Billion-Dollar Company While Her Family Thought She Was Failing. My face was on the cover, full color, frisked suit skyline behind me. No shadows, no ambiguity, just me. I had 10 copies express delivered to each of my family members' homes. Not with a note, not with a message, just the magazine, just the truth. Mom texted me that night, her words shaky. We didn't know, Lauren. Why didn't you tell us? I didn't reply. The truth was in their hands now. The article detailed my journey from working odd freelance gigs in a cramped Boulder apartment to building one of the most sought liquor AI-integrated systems companies in the U.S. It highlighted the turning points, the quiet sacrifices, the relentless perseverance they never saw and never asked about. At the end, the final line read, "Sometimes it just signs the check," and, honestly, that was enough. I didn't need their praise anymore or their recognition. I had built something real, something lasting, something they could never take away. Let them tell their friends. Let them adjust their stories to make themselves look better in hindsight. Let them pretend they always knew. Meanwhile, I'd be at Peak Pulse Solutions preparing for our expansion into Asia, closing 3 new enterprise deals, and mentoring the next generation of female tech founders. Every morning, I'd walk into my office, glance at the Forbes cover framed on my desk, and remind myself that I hadn't just proven them wrong. I'd redefined what success meant. Success had already spoken for itself. And for me. And I had no intention of turning the volume down. If you've ever been underestimated by the people who were supposed to believe in you the most, trust me, I see you. I spent years being told I was too vague, too artsy, too lost. While my sister basked in praise, I was the family's punchline. But I didn't fight back with arguments or approval seeking. I built something real, something they couldn't ignore even if they tried. And now, after all the silence, I'm finally telling my story, not out of spite, but to remind you, your worth is not defined by how others see you. It's defined by how you see yourself. So, if you've ever been made to feel small at a family dinner, if you've hidden your success just to keep the peace, or if you're still building in the shadows, drop a comment below and tell me your story. Tell me what you're working on, what you've overcome, or who you're proving wrong. Not for revenge, but for your own damn peace. And if you felt even a flicker of validation watching me rise from unemployable to CEO, hit that subscribe button. Not just for more stories like mine, but to be part of a community that sees through the noise and recognizes quiet resilience for what it really is. Strength. Let them laugh. Let them doubt. We'll keep building, because sometimes the best way to win is in silence until your name is on the building. Before you go, how's your day been? Really, I want to know. Have you had a small win you're proud of? Or maybe you're facing something tough and pushing through? Anyway, drop it in the comments. I read everyone. This channel isn't just about success stories. It's about real people doing real work, even when no one's watching. Let's celebrate the quiet victories.